some extent, we're victims of our own success in that we're a very small country. You know, speaking of Manchester, as we just were in the interval there, you know, they say Ireland has a population the size of Greater Manchester area, and yet we've got this phenomenal crop of bands.
We're an island of saints and scholars, and poets and songwriters, and you know, you only have to go out in Dublin any night, and there's bands playing everywhere. Now there's very few people going to see them, whether bringing friends or family, but there is a multitude of bands in Ireland. We are, like, you know, you were only talking about this last night. If we were in America, you know, would we be struggling, or could we do this full time? You know, because that's our goal, is to do it full time, and you know, we'd have to say probably yes, because the number of people, you know. So if you take those 4 million people in Ireland, and the percentage of that listens to music is about 20-25, and then you find that your genre and their bracket, you're down to maybe 3-4% of the population that you're only actually aiming at, you know. And a lot of stuff is done on perception, and you know, the radio stations, the Katy Perry's, the all the pop music out there, and they're mind warping kids, like, you know, and it's all the same, like, you know. But you can't change that.
There also seems to be this weird kind of polarity to the whole thing. There seems to be, on one side, there's the pure pop. Now, some will say that this has always existed, but I think it's become more extreme in the last, say, 10 years. You have the pure pop, and then you have like bands that kind of gravitate that and are kind of pop. And then you have the other extreme, which is bands who are very left field, like people who wear nothing but maybe a sock on their head or something and play one keyboard. No, do you know what I mean? That's the other extreme. And then like there's, if that's along a spectrum, then like it seems to be the bands are either there or there. And for the bands in the middle, which is a lot of bands, like I would say we're there in the middle. Like we write songs that are extremely left field, as you've seen at Gigonometry, like where you're jumping around the stage and you're going nuts, and they're all in weird timings and blah blah blah. But we also pride ourselves on writing incredibly appealing songs where people can sing along and feel included. And I feel that like those bands in the middle are getting a raw deal. That's how I feel about it.
It's a packed area, isn't it? You know, but I agree absolutely with what you're saying. But I've noticed also again that you're doing quite well in download charts and that kind of thing. You know, is that again the business side of things? A lot of bands don't kind of cop on that if you get your stuff out there. You were over in Flirt FM the other day over in Galway and stuff like that. So you really seem to have that end of it sussed out. Is that what you'd recommend to other bands as well? Is just find out business-wise what's going on. Find out where the best return is for your efforts, as it were.
At the end of the day, you know, being a musician, your CD, your song, that's your product. And then you wrap your product in the fancy wrapper. And it's all about sell after that. And you could be selling anything. So it's the same rule for any business. You know, get the product right, find your market. And then try and sell it. You know, it doesn't matter what business you're in.
Some people think it's sacrilege to talk in those terms, but like at the end of the day, like, you know, if there isn't some modicum of success for a band after a certain period, that band will fade and that talent will be lost. Do you know what I mean? And like I was saying to you earlier, like I know artists who I would put my house on, put my mortgage on, and to see those people struggle is really difficult for me, because I'm like, I can't figure it out. I'm like, they're just so talented. Like, and to think that they may lose the chance to do what they do, which is incredibly particular for them and individual. That's really sad to me. That saddens me. You know?
Well, it's clear that you're both really passionate about the whole thing. I see Buffalo Sun are over in the States at the moment. I see them, they're really good. I see I Have a Tribe over in London. Cloud Castle Lakes over in London as well, and you've got the likes of the Deans who are playing constantly over in France, Spain, Germany, and making a living out of it. But when you're working full time and some of the lads have kids and all that kind of stuff, that's just not really an option either, is it? So are we just kind of, in a way, as I say, victims of our geographical location and the fact that we are the land of saints and scholars of both and songwriters?
Well, of course, because you've only your market audience, but like the goal is to do it full time, whatever that may in turn. But we have to earn. You can't go off and have no money. You know,
absolutely.
Simple.
And we can see from, I mean, I know you're mates with the guys in Aslan and stuff, and they've done a fantastic job earning a living out of Ireland, essentially, for the last 25 years or so.
They have, and like, I mean, they have, the thing about Aslan, they have an incredibly loyal fan base, and like, the whole idea of Aslan, I mean, it's just such a beautiful idea that, like, you know, they've stuck with them through thick and thin, and it's just something that's any artist's ideal, is to have a group of fans out there who will be as loyal to you as those fans have been. You know, just to say what you're talking to Richie about there, with like, is there anything that can be done? Like, I think, you know, there has to be a recognition, I think, at some sort of level, governmentally or whatever, that, you know, Irish bands contribute a serious amount of money to the Irish society, and like to somehow take advantage of that, you have to have some sort of agency in place to be able to recognise, okay, well, those boys are viable, they could definitely do it, like, because the record companies have disintegrated. Do you know what I mean? So absolutely. And nothing has come in to replace them. So I think that, like, if the government were clever, if the arts minister or whoever was very clever, he would, I think, have to think about something like that, which is like, well, we have to form a body who can recognise the viability of these people, and if they can be marketed and if they can be shown around the world. I don't think that's unreasonable. People maybe think that's too much of a Lego.
It's not unreasonable at all. In fact, I heard the CEO of IMRO on the radio recently talking about the exact same thing. And you know, if you take a leaf out of the French government's book, they did that 15, 20 years ago. They promoted a rock star, I can't remember his name, Jacques something or other, to be the Minister for Culture. Right. And that made a huge difference to the indigenous art scene in France, you know, absolutely. But we talk about it, they do it.
But you see, the Irish government did something quite similar, and I know Crooked Charlie and all that, but like Charlie brought in the artists exemption. Like, I mean, however small or big that might be considered by people, that did have a massive impact on how, because look at the artists that came through, like U2, Sinead O'Connor, you know. That made a serious contribution to people, because they were able to live off the money that they saved for the short time before they made the big money. Do you know what I mean? So
look, we've got a lot to talk about, and the record empire is crumbling, and Red Empire is moving up, on and on and on and on and up. So look, before we finish up, guys, what's the next gig you're doing? Let's let people know about it.
We're going to do a small gig, just to try out some new songs in a place called Ruher on the 27th of this month. And we're just gonna, like, it's just an acoustic, kind of like a nice and formal way of introducing.
I presume that's a bike shop, is it, or something?
It's like a cafe, a bike cafe. Now there's going to be other artists on the night as well, and it's just a nice way to introduce some songs. And then the following month, because we're in the studio as well, we'll be playing in Abner's Browns, which is a really interesting gig. I advise anyone to go down. And on that night, we'll be supported by a very interesting artist from Dundalk called Elephant.
Absolutely, you were telling me about him earlier on. That sounds really, really good. It's a pity that there used to be a band about 10 years ago who were quite well known called 10 Speed Racer. It's a pity.
Joe loves them. Our producer.
Is that right? Okay, they were great. Yeah, they were great. Anyway, John the singer's down in Australia now, but it's a pity they're not still together, because I'd love to see them playing in Ruher. Boom, boom. So listen, folks, watch out for Red Empire coming up in Ruher soon, and then afterwards in Abner Browns again. Thanks a million, Richie. Thanks a million, Craig. Cheers, and best of luck at everything.